Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have IRAM of the Pillars. This place is also known as Atlantis of the Sands, and it is a lost city or area that is spoken of in the Quran. In the Quran, it is said to be a place that is full of lofty buildings, and it was populated by a group known as Ad. The group had turned away from Allah, so the prophet Hud was sent to summon them back. The people did not listen or obey, and as a result it is said that they were punished with a sandstorm being sent to the area for 7 days and 7 nights. In the end, the city is said to have vanished beneath the sands as if it never existed. In the 1990s, a team which was led by Nicholas Clapp, who is an amateur archaeologist and filmmaker, announced that they had found this lost city. It is said that this was done using NASA's remote sensing satellites, ground-penetrating radar, and images taken by the Space Shuttle Challenger. These tools gave them the opportunity to see old camel trade routes and where they all once converged. This point is a well-known area, and once excavated, it is said to have revealed the area known as the IRAM of the Pillars. In our number 9 spot today, we have Helic. According to Greek legend, Helic was a place that was destroyed by Poseidon, the god of the sea, storms, earthquakes, and horses. He was upset because those who resided in Helic were refusing to give their statue of Poseidon or even give a copy of it to the Ionian colonists in Asia Minor, which is now modern Turkey. Our modern archaeology, along with ancient sources, have been able to deduce that an earthquake in 373 BC caused the ground beneath the entire city to completely liquefy. From here, a tsunami then hit and totally engulfed the city, and it is said that this all happened in the span of an hour or so, which left no survivors. In the 1980s and 1990s, under the direction of an archaeologist named Dora Katsonopoulou and physicist Steven Suter, a more accurate location for where Helic may be came to light, and in 2001 the ancient city was located. Every summer, excavations continue to be carried out, and every year we learn more about this area and the secrets it holds that come all the way from prehistoric times. In our number 8 spot today, we have MOHENJO-DARO. This is a location whose name is said to roughly translate to, quote, Mound of the Dead Men. This is one of the world's oldest urban settlements, as it was found and built somewhere around 2600 to 2500 BC in what is now Pakistan, but it was abandoned in the 19th century BC as the civilization that called this place home declined. For almost 4,000 years, this site was seemingly forgotten about, and the remains of it were undocumented until an officer of the Archaeological Survey of India, R.D. Banerjee, visited the site in 1920 and found a flint scraper which convinced him of the site's history. From here, excavations of the site began, and as of the 1980s, it was named a World Heritage Site. In our number 7 spot today, we have Heraklion. Also known as Thonis to the Egyptians, this was an ancient city that was located near the mouth of the Nile River. Greek legend says that this was the city where Hercules took the first steps into Africa, as well as the place where Paris hid Helen before the Trojan War began. This is all to say that, to legend, this city was super important, but aside from the legend, no one knew where this place was or how to find it. Well, just over 2,000 years ago, it turns out that either an earthquake, a tsunami, or a combination of the two hit the city and submerged it underwater. It used to be believed that this place and Thonis were two separate places, and that both were located on what is now Egyptian mainland, but neither of those things turned out to be true. In reality, in 1999, after 5 years of searching, archaeologist Frank Gaudio located the ruins of the city underwater as they had been submerged in the ocean. Since then, excavations and explorations of the ancient city have taken place, and it was stocked full of some incredibly cool treasures from thousands of years ago. In 2010, a type of ancient Nile riverboat was found here, and even just a few months ago in August of 2021, it was announced that wicker baskets that contained fruits of the dome palm tree as well as grape seeds that date back to the early 4th century BC had been found among the ruins. In our number 6 spot today, we have Sigiriya. In 1831, it is said that Major Jonathan Forbes of the 78th Highlanders of the British Army was on horseback and on his way back from a journey when he spotted the bush-covered summit of Sigiriya. In the 1890s, archaeological work slowly began on the site, but Harry Charles Purvis Bell was really the person who began to start large-scale work on the area. The Cultural Triangle Project, which was launched by the government of Sri Lanka, began to really focus their attention to the area in 1982, and for the first time, archaeological work began on the entire city. Basically, the city consists of an ancient citadel that was built by King Kashyapa in the 5th century. There is an upper palace on the top of the rock, and a mid-level terraces, there are moats and walls and gardens that extend out from the base of the rock. The location once served as a palace and a fortress, but it was abandoned after the king's death. Not only is this now a World Heritage Site, but it is also one of the best preserved examples of ancient urban planning. In our number 5 spot today we have TAXILA. This location was established in 600 BC and was abandoned somewhere around 500 AD, and it remained unidentified until 1863 AD when Alexander Cunningham, the founder and the first Director General of the Archaeological Survey of India, realized that the directions to get to TAXILA were being misinterpreted. The site was first excavated by John Marshall, who worked there for 20 years. This area has become famous because it holds the remains of several settlements, the earliest of which dates back to around 1000 BC. This location was designated as a World Heritage Site in 1980 for a multitude of reasons, but perhaps most importantly because the ruins of the 4 settlements throughout history reveal the pattern of urban evolution through more than 5 centuries, and the value of that kind of insight cannot be overstated. There are even accounts which claim that the University of Ancient TAXILA was one of the earliest universities in the world, which is unbelievable. In our number 4 spot today we have Machu Picchu. For this one we have another one of the most famous and well-known lost cities, Machu Picchu. This site was built over 500 years ago, and it was once known as the lost city of the Inca until the modern discovery of it came in 1911 by archaeologist Hiram Bingham. Him and his team actually stumbled upon it almost accidentally while looking for another ancient city. Machu Picchu was built by the incredible Incas who have surprised us in our modern times many times with their unbelievable technology and abilities that they had all those years ago. It is believed that this place may have been built for the Inca emperor as a sort of estate. Machu Picchu was built in 1450, but it was abandoned about a century later at the time of the Spanish conquest. As of 2007, it has been voted one of the new 7 wonders of the world, and work continues to be done on it to maintain and restore this wonderful location. In our number 3 spot today we have Pompeii. One of the most famous lost cities ever, the Roman city of Pompeii was destroyed in 79 AD when the eruption of Mount Vesuvius exploded and volcanic ash was strewn about the city. Fast forward all the way to 1748 when the Duke of Naples had a summer palace built just 24 kilometers south of Naples on Italy's west coast. Through the construction, as those working on the palace began to dig, they started to come across buildings and streets, and from here, once news spread, people began to flock to see the area, and it was realized that what had been uncovered was the lost city of Pompeii. Throughout the Victorian times, people would come to see as more of this town was uncovered, and they found an amphitheater, a forum, houses and shops, everything you'd expect a town to have. This one was just ancient and buried. Now the ancient city of Pompeii is one of the most visited tourist attractions in the entire world, and excavations still continue on with secrets always being revealed. In our number 2 spot today we have SKARA BRAE. This was an area that is located in Scotland, and it was found in an exceptionally surprising way. In 1850 there was a huge storm that hit Scotland, and it was so bad that around 200 people passed away from it. The next day, however, once the storm had passed, residents of the Orkney Isles began to notice that part of a cliff had dislodged, but it uncovered a sort of hidden settlement. Tests were able to date this site back from 3200 BC to 2200 BC, and it was shown to have been inhabited for about 600 years. There were round stone homes here, and the roofs were made out of whalebone and peat. The design of this little city suggested that there wasn't a hierarchy, but rather a group of people living peacefully as farmers, herdsmen, and traders. While this site is small, the houses are in quite great shape for the amount of time it's been. This settlement is Europe's most complete Neolithic village, and while it is older than Stonehenge and the Great Pyramids, it's been called the Scottish Pompeii because of how well preserved it is. No one is exactly sure why the residents of this village abandoned it, but it is likely that a change in climate is somewhat, if not fully responsible, and a storm might have been the reason those living here had to leave in haste, which is deduced by how all of their belongings were left here. In our number 1 spot today we have CARAL. An American history professor named Paul Kosick was absolutely fascinated by ancient settlements, like I'm sure a lot of us are, but this passion led to him devoting much of his time to studying in Peru, which has such an incredibly rich history. In 1948, while in Peru, Paul made the discovery he had been waiting for when he came across the dry remains of an ancient city. The remains were carbon dated and placed to be about 5,000 years old. This city was once the home to around 3,000 inhabitants pre-Inca, and this was already a thriving location while the pyramids were being built. That is how old this settlement is. It appeared to be quite a peaceful place as there were no obvious signs of battles or weapons, but among the remains were homes, plazas, temples, and an amphitheater. It is said that the city was abandoned in 2000 BC, and in 2009 AD it was made a World Heritage Site.
Number 10. Shangri-La. First described in writing by English author James Hilton, Shangri-La is a utopia nestled in a valley in the western end of the Kunlun Mountains, which has become synonymous with an earthly paradise. It is said that the people who lived there were almost immortal, living hundreds of years longer than normal people and aging very slowly. Hilton was the first to call it by this name, but ancient Tibetan scriptures mention 7 such places, which were created to be sacred places of refuge for Buddhists in times of strife. The name seems to come from Shang, a district in southern Tibet, Ri, the Tibetan word for mountain, and La, meaning pass. Therefore, Shang Mountain Pass is believed to be the place where the mythological city exists, but that hasn't stopped other places from claiming the title. In 2001, a county on the northwestern part of the Yunnan province in China renamed themselves Shangri-La County, though many dispute their claim, since it seems that Hilton actually traveled to a place called the Hunza Valley, located close to the China-Pakistan border, which is an isolated green valley surrounded by mountains enclosed on the western end of the Himalayas, so it fits the description pretty well. But the people there actually seem to age faster due to increased ultraviolet radiation on the higher altitude areas, so the jury's still out on that one. Before we get to number 9, folks, be sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons. It helps us out so that we can keep bringing you the most amazing videos. Number 9, California. Now, I know what you're thinking. Connor, if California isn't real, then where does Mickey live? Well, I'm not talking about that California. I'm talking about the place the state was named after. In a Spanish novel published in 1510, a place akin to the Garden of Eden or Atlantis was described by the author as a mysterious island, quote, to the right hand of the Indies, entirely populated by women and had no metal other than gold on it. It was ruled by Queen Khalifa, which is where the island got its name, California. When Spanish explorer Hernan Cortez came to North America, he thought that he'd found the mythological place off of the mainland of America, because there appeared to be an island, when really it was only the bottom peninsula of the state, across the Sea of Cortez, which was named after himself. But Cortez was obsessed with the story, and since this island was technically to the right of the Indies and had so much gold on it, you can see how the name came to mind, and thus California was found. Well, they explored north and realized that it was not in fact an island. That didn't stop Cortez and others from drawing it as one on maps for hundreds and hundreds of years. YouTuber Johnny Harris actually has a fantastic video all about that if you want to hear more. But for now, the location of the storybook version of California still remains a mystery. Number 8. Thule. Stepping into Norse mythology, which has some of my favorite stories, Thule is a cold and peaceful place where they had months with no sunlight, said to be located between Scandinavia and Iceland. The ancient Greek explorer Pythias was the first to write about Thule during his travels around 330 BC. He was also one of the first to describe the effects of the moon on the tides and to estimate the length of the British coastline, and was a specialist in longitude and latitude. Some scholars believe that Thule is just another name for what is now called Norway, while others think that it is truly a lost island off the coast of Iceland. The Germanic tribes in Thule allegedly showed Pythias around their homeland and explained that in the winter the sun did not rise at all, but in the summer there was no night. Number 7. Camelot. Known as the court and castle where King Arthur reigned, Camelot first appeared in 12th century texts and eventually became synonymous with Arthur and the world that surrounded his stories. Some people believe that the place is entirely fictional, but many more still have attributed it to other places in Great Britain where castles still remain standing. Debate has been going on since the 15th century about the location of the beautiful capital of Arthur's kingdom, and we may never know the true location where Merlin and the Knights of the Round Table called their home. Number 6. Lyonesse. Sticking in Arthurian legend, Lyonesse was the home of the hero Tristan, and was said to have been lost to the sea. The story of Tristan and Iseult sees the two traveling across the kingdom from Ireland to Cornwall to deliver Iseult to Tristan's uncle for marriage, but the two unknowingly drink a love potion and fall for each other, having to endure many battles to save their love. The kingdom was supposedly located on the Isles of Scilly, and the 140 islands that exist there now are apparently just the hilltops of the now sunken kingdom off the coast coast of Cornwall. There is evidence to suggest that water levels were remarkably lower at the time, and that in the last 3,000 years there have been enough submergence that this lost kingdom could still exist in the water below. If they ever made a movie about Tristan, I wonder if they'd get Liam Neeson to play the Leonesian. Number 5. AZTLAN. The Aztecs were one of the most powerful civilizations to emerge from the ancient Americas, and so much about them has been lost to time and to conquerors wiping out their history. While much is known about their later days as a civilization, we know very little about their origins. Allegedly, the mysterious island of Aztlan is where the Aztec people came together to create their society before migrating to the Valley of Mexico. According to legend, there were 7 tribes who lived in 7 caves near the island, and in order to maintain peace between their peoples, they came together and moved to Aztlan, which means the land to the north, the land from whence we, the Aztecs, came. Since it was so long ago, the island could have been in an area that is no longer submerged in water, and searches for it have taken place from the bottom of Mexico all the way up to Utah, but it's yet to be found. Some think it's pure myth, while others hold out hope that it will be discovered. Number 4. JULFAR. Home to the legendary Sinbad the Sailor, JULFAR is one of the most famous cities of Arabia that has been lost to the desert. Located near the now super modern Dubai, JULFAR was the hub for the entirety of the southern Arabic trade in the Middle Ages, because unlike other lost desert cities, JULFAR was a bustling port town. Now here's the cool part, this city has actually been found. In the 1960s, archaeologists discovered signs of settlement and civilization dating all the way back to the 6th century, and have since found countless residences, shops, and items which have helped us unearth the mysteries of this lost city. This find was very important because it helps historians fill out the timeline of the area, showing how neighboring towns received goods and made trades, as there were few port towns described or found before. Number 3. El Dorado. The very idea of a city made entirely of gold is enough to fascinate people. Add in the fact that the place has been lost and is awaiting a brave explorer to discover it, now you've got a legend. The origins of the tale come from the Muisca tribe in Colombia, and El Dorado doesn't actually refer to a city, but to the king at the center of the city or the society. The Muisca tribe had an affinity for golden treasures and often used them in rituals for their gods, and one of their most important rituals was conducted when they got a new king. The king would be stripped naked, covered in gold dust, and set on a raft adorned with gold and jewels to the middle of Lake Guatavita. The townspeople would then throw golden coins and trinkets into the lake to appease the gods, and the king would wash the dust off of himself in the lake, after which he was known as the Gilded One, or El Dorado. In 1545, conquistadors attempted to drain the lake to find the lost treasures and found gold along the edges of the lake, proving their theory. They used bucket chains to drain as much as they could, but they couldn't reach the center. And in 1580, a businessman tried to drain it again, and while lowering the water level and finding treasure along the edges, he too couldn't reach the center. And in 1965, the country of Colombia named Lake Guatavita a protected area, making it illegal to do any more searching. It is estimated that at the center of the lake lies what could amount to billions of dollars in ancient gold relics, but we will never know for sure. Number 2. Kalahari. In 1885, a Canadian entertainer and adventurer named Guillermo Farini, also known as the Great Farini, became one of the first Westerners to cross the unexplored and treacherous Kalahari Desert in southern Africa. When he returned to Canada, he wrote a paper and showed photographs of ruins he discovered which proved the existence of a civilization which had been lost to the desert sands. In his paper, he wrote, "We camped near the foot of it, beside a broken line of stone which looked like the Chinese wall after an earthquake, and which, on examination, proved to be the ruins of quite an extensive structure, in some places buried beneath the sand, but in others fully exposed to view." He continued on to say, "We traced the remains for nearly a mile, mostly a heap of huge stones, but all flat-sided, and here and there the cement perfectly plainly visible between the layers. Many expeditions have been conducted to find the lost city, including 12 by the grandparents of none other than Elon Musk, who wants to steer away from ancient civilizations and start a new one on Mars." A 2016 documentary series used aerial photography and radar in conjunction with Farini's descriptions and found some man-made ruins near an oasis in the Kalahari. More exploration is needed, but it's very possible that we have found this lost city. And finally, we reach our number 1, which is of course Atlantis. Arguably the most famous lost city, Atlantis has captured the imagination of people from around the world since it was first mentioned in writing by the Greek philosopher Plato in 360 BC. It is said that the island was a place of extremely advanced technology and an unmatched navy, but it was lost in one terrible night of fire and earthquakes and sank into the sea. Since then, there has always been someone looking for the lost city to prove it's real, and one of the most promising expeditions was made by Canadian-Israeli journalist and investigative archaeologist Simcha Yakubovich, who has made many documentaries and discoveries about ancient civilizations. He partnered with film director James Cameron and used Plato's text and new emerging technology to find some incredible evidence on the sea floor. 6 Bronze Age stone anchors off of the coast of Spain in the Strait of Gibraltar, one of the areas believed to be the resting place of Atlantis. One of the other main theories is that the Atlanteans were actually the Minoan civilization on the island of Santorini, Greece. Around 3,600 years ago, the Thera eruption occurred and the island shattered, and it, as well as the Minoans on it, were lost to the sea. With the location and the way the island was lost being so similar to Plato's descriptions, this seems like a great candidate for the lost city of Atlantis.
The lost city of AZTLAN brings us to number 10. Many people believe that the missing island of AZTLAN is where the Aztec people began to form as a civilization prior to migrating to Mexico. There were a lot of tribes and hunters and gatherers, and Aztec people ruled a large empire in central and southern Mexico in the 15th and early 16th century. Since then, we have gathered a ton of information about how they used to live and what they accomplished, but little is known about their origin story. AZTLAN is believed to be a mystical land, but a ton of others believe that this location exists and one day we will physically find it. There have been countless searches for this island, but we haven't been able to find it yet. If the lost city of AZTLAN is found, we would uncover an insane amount of history and culture. Well, you know what, I hope this day comes sooner than later. Number 9 takes us over to Lion City in China. This place is often referred to as China's Atlantis City, and that's because this lost city is sitting at the bottom of a lake. This was once a thriving city that was known all over China. It can only be visited if you plummet 100 feet below sea level. And no, this city wasn't lost due to natural causes. This ancient city disappeared due to hands of humans. Although it sits deep underwater, it's still miraculously fully preserved. All of its structures, statues, memorials, and archways are still perfectly intact. It was rediscovered about 2 decades ago, and since then divers have been repeatedly making trips below to the surface to marvel at this beautiful lost city. Dwarka brings us to number 8. According to the local folklore in India, this was the hometown of Lord Krishna, and this place was believed to be an old wives' tale until the ruins of the city were discovered 131 feet below the ocean. These amazing ruins were found beneath the surface of modern day Dwarka, and the beauty of this city has baffled everyone, including experts. Marine archaeologists have found sandstone walls, a grid of streets, and remains of a seaport. They believe that the city was built 9,000 years ago. It's just amazing that we were able to discover the city that seemed like it only existed in folklore. I wonder what else is out there just waiting to be discovered. The medieval city of JULFAR is in at number 7. It's believed that JULFAR exists somewhere in the United Arab Emirates, and JULFAR used to be a thriving city for thousands of years. It acted as a port and commercial center before it fell into ruins and disappeared from history for almost 2 centuries. Part of the city was actually discovered by archaeologists in the 1960s, but historians are still baffled by the fact that most of JULFAR still remains hidden under the sand dunes. Maybe one day we'll be able to excavate the entire city and explore JULFAR even deeper. The lost city of the Z climbs onto this list at number 6. This highly mysterious city is believed to be somewhere in the jungles of Brazil. Apparently it is composed of a complex civilization, but because it is so isolated, it has never been properly documented or reported on. In 1925, an explorer named Percy Fawcett headed towards the jungles of Brazil to find this lost city called Z. But once his expedition started, his team vanished without a trace while searching for it. Despite countless rescue missions, Fawcett and his team were never found, and this location still remains a mystery to this day. I'm guessing with the wildfires in the Amazon, this city could have been destroyed, but hopefully one day the legendary city of Z will be found.
This is where they sang. It's astonishing.
It's just a pity you couldn't see it intact.
Number 5 brings us to Angkor. Located deep within the Cambodian jungle, there is a huge medieval city that was hidden from us for centuries. But thanks to new archaeological tools and techniques, we are now able to explore this once lost city. It took over a century of grueling hard work to fill in the map. But now the lost city of Angkor is slowly beginning to reappear, but there are still a ton of blanks that need to be filled in. From what we have studied, Angkor has a ton of secrets, including an elaborate network of temples, boulevards, and it has a bunch of sophisticated waterways that spread across the city. I'm so curious to know what this city was like centuries ago. I find this stuff so interesting because, well, we can really evaluate how we've evolved and how architecture has changed throughout time. I mean, I went to school for architect, and so I'm just so fascinated with buildings. Diving down into number 4, we have the city of Atlantis. It was first mentioned by the ancient Greek philosopher Plato, more than 2,300 years ago. Atlantis is one of the oldest and greatest mysteries in the world today. According to Plato, this kingdom existed 9,000 years before his time, and one day it mysteriously just disappeared. Even after spending years of researching Atlantis, the truth about this strange city remains a mystery, and that is why we are so fascinated with finding its location. So where could it be? It's believed that the city sunk into the sea after an earthquake or a tsunami somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean, but others believe that Atlantis is just a myth. As of today, there is no scientific evidence that proves, whether or not this mysterious city exists, but maybe Atlantis is somewhere at the bottom of the sea just waiting to be rediscovered. Let me know what you guys think. I think Atlantis is real. The lost land of Lyonesse comes onto this list next up at number 3. There's a strong belief that this lost city is nothing more than a legend or myth, but there's still a small chance that it could be a reality. It is said that the city disappeared when it completely sunk into the ocean on November 11, 1099. If this mysterious city does exist, it would be quite large. Apparently, it contained 140 villages and churches, but thanks to a massive flood, the entire village was swallowed and engulfed in water. It is said that all the people and animals living on the land drowned, and once it was completely immersed in water, the land never re-emerged. There is evidence that shows that the sea levels back then would be considerably lower, so it is very possible that the city could have been occupied by humans. But since this city appears to be a legend, well, this location remains a mystery. A sacred city comes in at number 2. Dvaraka was recently rediscovered in the 1980s by scientists. The city is said to be a Hindu, Jainist, and a Buddhist sacred city that forms one of the 7 sacred cities of Hinduism. According to the ancient legend, this city was destroyed during a huge battle between Krishna and King Selva. The city was apparently destroyed by blasts of energy, and it was never seen again. That is until it was rediscovered by scientists, and they determined that the city was actually located where the legend described it to be. That is absolutely insane. Well, apparently this city could have been built around 9,000 years ago. I mean, how do people even know information like that? And if that's the case, this would make it one of the oldest cities on Earth. El Dorado is in at number 1. El Dorado is known as the lost city of gold. Now this is a city I want to find. It is believed to be located in the region of the Orinoco and the Amazon rivers. For hundreds of years, historians and treasure hunters have been constantly looking for the lost city of gold. And who could really blame them? Apparently it is filled with gold and other priceless jewels and treasures. I'm imagining that it looks like the Cave of Wonders, in Aladdin. But sadly, the city of gold remains a mystery, and there's no physical evidence that this place actually exists. And I'm sure if someone found it, they're not gonna tell people about it, and it probably took all the gold. They're selling it on the black market, maybe a few coins on eBay or Amazon. Can you sell money on Amazon? I don't know. I'm gonna search.